Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Hero Class Showcase. It's finally time, guys. It's finally time to talk about the Soul Hacker. Probably one of the most deadly classes in the entire game if you know how to use it right. There's so many ways to use this class, but I'm sure if you're here, you want to put out the most damage possible, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Sure, you can make it a healer if you wanted to, you can make it a tank if you wanted to, but there's a very good chance that you want to use it as an attacker, someone to put out as high damage as possible. You can easily reach cap damage if you know what you're doing, and if you get the RNG just right for the crits, and that's exactly what we want to discuss today, and what a great damage dealer it is. If you're going into post-game and you want to fight against the super bosses, you will definitely have a Soul Hacker on your team. So, as I get into it, I do want to point out that there are many skills that you have to get, or that you could possibly get in this game. I think there's one skill or art corresponding to every single unique monster in the game. When you kill a unique monster, you get an art or skill from them, and yeah, pretty much if you complete this class, you have pretty much versed yourself extremely well into the entire world of Aionios, and that's very apparent with the amount of damage and power that you can possibly get from this. So basically, the general idea is that it's kind of like if Poppi QTπ from Xenoblade 2 was like combined with a blue mage from the Final Fantasy games. There's just so many potential abilities and combinations that get really deadly if you know what you're looking for. So for today's video, I'm going to be having Senna as my Soul Hacker, and going over to the skill build. First, we have the class skill. It's the Soul Hack. You can't change this. That's all you need to know. Role skills, honestly, there is the healer. Like I said, you could be a healer, you could be a tank, but you want to be the attacker. And personally, I choose the Power Soul because it gives you high attack but low accuracy. Having low accuracy or any of the shortcomings or things that you don't get if you don't choose the Strike Soul, you will more than make up for it if you have Signifers on your team. And for today's video, I'm going to have two Signifers on my team, so the Power Soul is exactly the way to go. As far as enemy skills go, I'm also going to be pointing out the sources for these particular ones as we go along. So the first thing I want to point out is that the very first skill that I would like to have for damage purposes, this is assuming that you're going to use the Soul Hacker to get the rest of the unique monsters, is going to be the Emperor of Violence. You can get this from Slackjawed Zephyl over in the Cadencia region. And yeah, you'll definitely notice that guy. He's on Daedal Isle. He's a Darbus that is completely immune to any kind of reaction. This is a good one to start off with. You're probably going to use it for a long stretch before you start to get better ones, and then once you have everything all figured out, you get everything maxed out, so this is going to become obsolete. But it gives you a 20% boost to your attack when you max it out, which is very solid for our purposes. The next one is going to be Dangerous Claws. This one is also fairly easy to get. I believe you get this one over by the Titan Rock resting point. Cross some water, fight against Virion, and he will give you this. This is definitely one of the best skills you can have for a damage-dealing Soul Hacker, simply because it's the only one that increases your critical rate, and it gives you critical hit damage. It's a 2-for-1. You definitely do not want to pass this one up. And also, I want to point out that there is a skill known as Attack Mastery. Attack Mastery, you can get this one from an enemy in Origin. It's found fairly late in the game, and it boosts damage for each Soul Hacker art or skill learned. Now, here's the thing that I really want to make very clear to you guys, is that the amount of damage that this thing gives you is okay. It's not the worst damage in the world, it's certainly not the best damage in the world, but it's likely going to be one that you may want to work towards, and in certain situations, it's one you'll definitely want to put on. But if you want to compare this with the Aquatic Warrior, it boosts your damage by 50% when in water. This is roughly the same damage boost that you get from Attack Mastery, and for the land version, you will look at the Terran Warrior. The Terran Warrior is the exact same effect as Aquatic Warrior, but when you're fighting things on land, a lot of the enemies, in fact, I believe the vast majority of enemies you'll be fighting will be on land, so switch them out between the two. Aquatic Warrior you can get from the Whirlpool Triumvirate in the Cadencia region. This, you just need to fight against it 5 times to get a maxed out and to get a 50% damage bonus for anything that you're fighting in the water. And Terran Warrior, you will find this from one of the 4 Blades in the Dark unique monster, where you fight against 4 people at once. You will get this from a side quest that you have to do when you have Triton in the party and go to the city. It'll be to the east of the Stone Memorial area of the city. And yeah, this is going to be, 50% damage. It's roughly the same, actually, as the attack mastery skill. Having both of them at the same time is beneficial, but the thing is, though, is that it's only equal to that, or actually, I think it's slightly stronger than Aquatic Warrior and Terran Warrior, but the thing is, though, you would have to get to fight all the unique monsters in the game and get all of their skills with a soul hacker in the party in order for this to actually get to that level. So for practicality purposes, it's best that you just go for Aquatic Warrior, fight the Whirlpool Triumvirate first, and then go for the Terran Warrior, fight the 4 Blades in the Dark, and then get that skill first, because it's going to be the best source of damage very, very early on. But essentially, you want to have these 3 skills in order to kind of, this is going to be your general all-purpose build for enemy skills when you're fighting all of them before you can get the attack mastery fully maxed out. Now, on my Switch SD card, I actually did a couple of recordings. I wanted to do the damage comparisons with different skill builds or skill combinations by fighting against this Lance Ferris using the Murder Knuckle skill, which you can acquire from an enemy that's in Origin, which we'll talk about later when we talk about the arts. But basically, the general idea is that I wanted to compare having, like, the basic build is going to be the Emperor of Violence and the Dangerous Claws. That's going to be the benchmark before we inevitably have to switch out Emperor of Violence, but we'll talk about that later. And there will be no third skill. So, of course, this is going to be the lowest damage because we do not have any damage boosting skills outside of the 2 that we already have. Okay, so we get a respectable 19,647 damage. This is, of course, with the Emperor of Violence and Dangerous Claws skill, and of course it's going to become higher damage as we add on the Terran Warrior, because we're fighting against enemies on land. So here's that same attack with the Terran Warrior with a crit. Just so you know, all of these attacks are crits too, but this is going to be a 29,487. This is this is almost 10,000 more damage. With that 50% damage boost, it's very, very good. So yeah, that's going to be with the Terran Warrior. And this next one, we're going to swap out Terran Warrior. It'll still be Emperor of Violence and Dangerous Claws, but now we're going to, instead of having a Terran Warrior, we're going to have the Attack Mastery with all of the skills unlocked, which is 29,574. So only slightly more, and to be honest, you could also chalk that up to RNG. It just might have rolled just slightly more damage. It's a very, very small difference. I like to think that Attack Mastery is slightly higher, but no pressure. If you guys don't have that yet, go for Terran Warrior or Aquatic Warrior, whatever the situation may be. Use that, and then I think you will have basically the same damage up until you can get the Attack Mastery. Because if you combine them both together, Attack Mastery and Terran Warrior, as well as Dangerous Claws, can result in even more damage, as seen in this clip here. There's going to be 35,000 damage. That's a lot, all things considered, and you're definitely going to want to have this for most situations, with the exception of when you're fighting against unique monsters that are much higher level than you, or the super bosses. Now, I mentioned the super bosses being a thing that you have to consider when it comes to optimizing your damage, and we're going to be looking at the Underworld's Rage, which you can get from Unobtrusive Liggy in the Fornis region. So, the thing about Underworld's Rage is that when you have it maxed out, you will get your increased damage by 100% each time an ally is incapacitated, to a maximum of 200%. So basically, if one of your allies dies twice, you get max damage from this skill. If 2 allies die once, you will get max damage from this skill. It cannot go higher than that, but 200% is so much more than either Terran Warrior or Mastery or Attack Mastery. And as far as I'm aware, if Senna dies, I don't believe it resets either. It's not like a buff that you have to reapply. This is just a property of her own enemy skill. So, yeah, if you're fighting against things that you know that you may end up dying to, or that some allies will die to, this is definitely the one that you want to replace either Terran Warrior or attack mastery with. But for the most part though, you want to have these three skills, and of course when you're fighting against a super boss, you want to switch out one of them for the underworld skill, and you will pretty much be doing the most damage that you can be with the soul hacker. Now, going over to the accessories, and this is another thing that I want to point out too, as far as comparisons go. Lune rings, you want to have this one for fusion arts, you want to have 100% increased damage when you do the fusion arts. During the chain attacks, every single art that you do will count as a fusion art, so of course increasing that by 100% is definitely something that you want. But even then, fusion arts on a soul hacker are very, very good, but we'll talk about that more when we talk about the arts. Fiber wraps, this is pretty self-explanatory. Whenever you hit a launched enemy, they take increased damage, but with the fiber wraps, you'll increase that by 110%. It's one of the easiest damage increases that you could ever hope for. And then finally we have the ceramic belt, boost your attack by 32%. We will be foregoing the Emperor of Violence, so having this by itself is good enough to make up for that. I did try experimenting with some critical ratio increases, but unfortunately the amount of damage that you lose compared to the amount of, we would go for consistency over the big flashy numbers, because the general idea is that we want all of our numbers to be relatively high with the chance of critting, rather than having a lot of crits but with less damage overall. So that's kind of what I've gone for here. I have done a little bit of experimenting. So in this picture, I have the usual builds, but instead of having a ceramic belt to increase the attack power, I've changed that out for a mercury ring, which increases the critical rate by I think 60%, and the smash damage is approximately 585,990. And in this one, this is with the ceramic belt with 441,714, which seems like less damage, and it definitely is because the base damage, but in both scenarios, neither of these are critical hits. Now, going to this example over here, this is the Saturnia rings. We're going to swap out the ceramic belt for the Saturnia rings, and the critical hit is 1.857 million damage. And then the next one is going to be the one with the ceramic belt with the increased damage, and it's a critical hit as well, with 2.255 million. So the damage overall would be better in the critical hits along with it, because we're not increasing the critical damage with the Saturnia rings, we're just increasing the likelihood of it. So having more damage is a lot more important at the base, in the very least when it comes to using your accessories. Next up, I gotta talk about the gems. This is fairly self-explanatory. Steel Cleaver, Analyze Weakness, Accurate Grace. We want more attack power. I mean, everyone wants more attack power. If you're an attacker, you can have this, so needs no explaining. We also got the critical hit damage bonus, which will be very important if we're doing chain attacks. And we have the Accurate Grace for more accuracy, which is very important for Agnian arts especially. Going over to the arts themselves, going to my regular arts, the non-master section, is going to be Hard Dig, Double Bite, and Murder Knuckle. Murder Knuckle is probably one of the only skills that requires fighting against an enemy in Origin. This has a lot of damage. It deals damage that ignores defense, and it has a very sizable power multiplier. We also got the Double Bite. You can get this one immediately when as soon as you get the class. In a Hard Dig, you get this from one of the bosses. I think you get this from the one in Etia region. You have it on the screen right now. But yeah, the Hard Dig does a fair amount of damage, but it does bonus damage to toppled enemies, which makes sense because in a fusion, this is with our launch. Launch, of course, you will be using on toppled enemies, so both of them will reap the benefits of the bonus damage. The Bomber Head, you get this one from a unique monster. This is going to be Senna's launch. And then we also have Hawkshot, which is the break. And using a break is always important for the purposes of setting up a launch and then eventually a smash. And all we gotta do is wait for a party member to topple. I have a few sources of topple on the team, including Triton. And then finally the smash. You want to make sure that you're the only person in the party that has access to smash if you're going to be using this outside of chain attacks, because you don't want anyone stealing your damage. Sumo Press, you get this one from a Brog very, very early on in the game. It's actually kind of ironic that a lot of the best skills that you can get from enemies tend to be the ones that are much easier than you would expect. Very few of the late game enemies require you to have their skills in order to have a powerful Soul Hacker build, but having a break, launch, and smash is very, very important for making you do as much damage as possible. There isn't really much else for me to say. As far as Triton goes as a character, he's okay. We're gonna be using him for today's video. There isn't really too much to him. I do enjoy his gimmick for the for the chain attacks, simply because there was like a high risk reward. It's very high risk for a very mid reward, but I think that's kind of what I love about it. It's really silly, but basically the general idea is that if he finishes an order, oh, sorry, not if he finishes an order. When he reactivates during a chain attack, he's going to end up having minus or plus 50. So he gets some really, really hefty bonuses to his TP, but also you have a chance to lose it all. It's really silly, but a lot of fun. As far as the rest of the party goes, I got the two Signifers. One of my Signifers has a has a topple break launch combo to set up Senna for the smash. I also have a purely dedicated Signifer for the purposes of buffing up the party, which I will be leading with. And then we got the two damage dealers, not much else to say. They both have damage for like fiber wraps, attack power, and fusion art damage increases. And then I got my tank, not really much else to say there either. It's all fairly simple. We want the Soul Hacker to be the focal point of today's video though. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to have two demonstrations today, because I know that you guys don't want to just see me do chain attacks. We're going to fight against a smaller enemy, and we're going to play around with the smash attacks there. So enjoy. Alright, so before we begin the battle, the very first demonstration, we want to quickly double check the skills that we have on Senna. So we have Attack Mastery, Dangerous Claws, and Terran Warrior. However, we were going to be fighting the Whirlpool Triumvirate, meaning that Aquatic Warrior is going to be more beneficial to us. It's important to constantly double check to make sure that you're getting the most amount of damage that you can. And like I said before, you want to go for Underworld's Rage over any of these ones if you're up against something that you anticipate one of your party members dying to. Even if only one party member dies, that is still going to be more damage overall. But if both of them die, which is very, very common when you're fighting against the unique monsters or the super bosses, then yeah, Underworld's Rage is going to be the best one to have. But other than that though, we are all set. So for this particular battle, I want to de-emphasize using a chain attack, because chain attacks are very, very easy to pull off, and also the Whirlpool Triumvirate, this is actually where you get the Aquatic Warrior skill, so yeah, this is just a good example as well. So hopefully Taion will have the aggro on him. I'll be starting on as Taion for the first leg of this battle, just so that we can get in as many buffs as we can. And since there are 3 targets, it's very easy for me to have aggro on someone that's not Mio, so that we are able to have a fair amount of cooldown upgrades from the Fraternal Badge and Defender's Pride, or Protector's Pride skill from the Guardian Commander. Other than that though, yeah, you're going to find that it'll be very, very easy for us to survive. That's why we don't need to worry about Underworld's Warrior. And then I'm going to set a switch over to Senna real quick. So currently this guy is targeting me, but we got a guy that is toppled. I'll wait for the launch, and once you see the launch you want to hit that fusion combo, and that is an instant dead. Okay, and now we only have 2 more to go. Granted, these level 66 monsters, even on hard mode, are still fairly easy to deal with. Now, if we ever end up in a situation where we have we're in danger, we could always switch over to Ouroboros. And because we're doing fusion combos fairly often, even on hard mode, it is still fairly easy for us to get the interlink levels. So I'm going to switch over to Lance for a bit. And there's another smash, and look how much damage that is from the smash. Thankfully the AI caught on to what we were trying to do. Since there are enemies that are attacking non-attackers, or sorry, non-defenders, switching over to Lance is a good idea, because he also has the Protector's Pride and Fraternal Badge combo. And switch over to Senna. Actually, do you know what? I said I wouldn't do a chain attack, but we're going to do a chain attack right now. Because I do not have the cooldown ready for it, but we might as well cap it off with this. There we go. I didn't have the cooldown, but I wanted to make sure I used it. But yeah, that is pretty much all there is to say about whenever it is that you're fighting against enemies that aren't necessarily like one big enemy. If you're fighting against groups, the Soul Hacker really excels, because you can easily pick off the enemies. Whenever you find yourself against unique monsters with a lot of HP, they tend to have reduced HP compared to single target, so a Soul Hacker can really lighten the load very quickly. But now what we're going to do, we're going to quickly move on to a super boss and show the extreme end to really show where the Soul Hacker shines in single target damage. Okay, so again, we are going to have to double check the skills to make sure. We're going to be fighting against one of the super bosses that takes place on land. So what's going to happen is we're going to quickly go over to skills, double check. We have Attack Mastery and Aquatic Warrior. We're going to switch out Aquatic Warrior with Terran Warrior, and then we are going to switch out Attack Mastery for Underworld Rage, because we definitely anticipate someone fainting. So yeah. Fight against Kilocorn Grandeps. I was considering taking a Shara with us for this fight, but you know what? This is a Soul Hacker video, let's have Triton with us. And we'll fight against the super boss.
This one's gonna be tough.
So, generally speaking, this is going to be one of those cases where you want to smash your cooldowns as best you can as the Signifer. Try to give yourself as much of an advantage as possible with all those buffs. We don't necessarily have to play as the Soul Hacker for the purposes of this particular example, because survivability is key. And playing as an attacker is generally something that is best left to the AI, because it's a very simple task. Okay, Resting Flag. Still not enough for the Cry of Faith. You want to make sure that everyone's inside of the regen circles that we're making. And if we see any of those red exclamation marks on the map, we want to make sure we can set our heal harmonies near them as well. But if anyone decides to keel over and die, that would actually be okay for me, for the purposes of proccing that Underworld. And of course, having the launch does help stall for a little bit of healing as well. Okay, so Senna's the first one to go down, that's fine. As far as I'm aware, someone collapsing does not actually prevent them from gaining the bonus, or doesn't reset the bonus. Other than that though, just keep sending out your buffs. And we're going to try our best to aim. We have two healers, so I can just worry about throwing out the buffs. And you want to get all your cancels. That's the important thing too. As long as you have your cancels, you're going to get your cooldowns back a lot faster if they're Agnian.
No, you can't! Get you, Leo!
Alright, so Noah is fainted, but hopefully Lance will come up and get him. And Noah is currently level 3 Interlink. I'm going to switch over to Lance. Someone get Uni, please. Pick up Uni, if anyone can. Alright, I'm going to switch over to Senna, and we're going to try to get a launch combo. So the good thing about Senna is that all of her abilities do result in a break with a small chance. Then you can switch over to Lance, hit that topple, and switch back to Senna for a launch. Then disconnect, and hit plus. Okay, please tell me no one died on the way there. Okay, perfect. So, we're in a really good position now, because 2 people have fainted, and that means that Senna is going to get the full 200% from Underworld Rage. And you know what? We got Triton on our team right now, so we're going to go ahead and give him a bit of a whirl. So, after we finish the order, people are going to get more TP. It's not especially useful, and his Heroic Chain, when he reactivates, he will either add 50 or remove 50. It's such a high risk for such a mid reward, but I think that's kind of what I like about this guy. He's so fun. Okay, so we're going to start things off with Noah, as we usually do, having an attacker to kind of give ourselves a little bit of a boost. And then we find ourselves with Triton. We're going to try to go for a side attack. And that is going to get us over the 100 mark. We're not going to get very much in terms of multipliers from this, but because we have the Signifers and because we have the Soul Hacker, we're going to still do plenty of damage. And there's the 0, of course. Of course. Alright. Now we got ourselves a real game now. Okay, so now we got ourselves in a situation where we want to have Uni start us off. And I think it would be a good idea if we went over to Triton again and see if he can get us at least 14 points. We don't necessarily want Triton to have TP anymore. I feel like if you get one bad roll at the beginning, it's probably best not to put too many eggs in your Triton baskets. But as it is, though, yeah, we are getting a fair amount of TP. So now we have a choice. We don't have to go to Mio immediately, but I would like to get the Taion Chain Order because that is going to lower the physical defense of the guy that we're fighting against, which is beneficial because the smash that that Senna has is counting as physical. So give everyone a power charge, give us a sizable power charge, and then switch over to Noah. That is going to get us a sizable amount. We will be able to bring back 2 people after this round. As long as we get to 400% damage, we should be able to close it out still with Senna, which we fully intend to do. Okay, so now we have a choice of either going to Mio or Uni. Honestly, both of them are fine, but thing is though, finishing off with Uni would give us the Full Metal Jaguar finisher for the Chain Order, so it's probably best that we go for her. So again, refresh that power charge, give us a lot of TP to start off with. And then I'm going to use the Fatal Barrage, No Love Lost combo with Uni. And we're going to have we're going to really whittle down the HP for now. Really whittle down the HP just to make sure we can close it out in a single shot. That's what we're aiming for right now. Okay, so now we're at 434% damage. And there we go, Triton coming in clutch with a 0. Alright, we're 2 for 2 as far as zeros go. Okay, so all that's left now for us is to, you know what we can do? We're just going to go straight for the Cross Impact and Resonant Flag. Then it's time for Senna to shine, and we're going to see how much damage we can pull off with this. Murder Knuckle Sumo Press. Cross your fingers for that crit. Ooh, not quite cap damage, but more than enough for us to close out this fight. This is exactly what makes the Soul Hacker so fun, is that you saw how much health that guy had? All she had to do was just one punch him. And don't forget that it's not just the smash damage, it's also all the additional damage that we get from the Sumo Press and the Murder Knuckle art that add on to that amount. So even though 9 million is the cap, we can still go for a little bit more from that. But I believe that was 7 million, which is still really, really good. And again, this is the kind of stuff that you would need if you feel like progressing past the usual unique monsters and ascend them into super bosses in order to make them work.
You want me to lead?
But for the most part, though, yeah, like the Soul Hacker is a lot of fun, and it's such a rewarding way to encourage the player to go explore the map. Like I said, this is kind of like a Poppi QTπ meets the Blue Mage, and it's such a great way to incentivize exploration, add to the replayability of this game, and I can definitely see the Soul Hacker being the focal point for any future updates that comes with this game. It'll be crazy to see just how far we can take this as well, as far as the player base is concerned. Anyways, guys, this one was a lot of fun. The Soul Hacker, there's so much to say about it. I'm pretty sure the intro and the overview would definitely take a lot more time than the actual demonstrations themselves, but that's how it is, though. So many moving parts, so many components to the Soul Hacker class, and the result is just explosive, as you guys saw with what happened with Kilocorn Grandeps. Anyways, guys, thank you very, very much for watching today's edition of the Soul Hackers Showcase, and I hope to see you guys next time as we cover the next one. And I'll see you guys then. Take care, everyone.